Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Shambhu and in this video we are going to take a look into Cisco ACI simulator. A few days ago I have started my data center journey and I was looking to learn few of the data center technologies these days. So I came across ACI, Cisco ACI, which I need to learn, and in order to learn Cisco ACI we need to have lots of physical gear, which I don't have. And then I came across Cisco ACI simulator, which is kind of a software bundle of the complete ACI fabric, whatever we have today. Just the key difference between the physical gear ACI fabric and the simulator one is that it doesn't have those physical devices like the switches, leaf switches or spine switches. Those are not physical ones, so you would not be able to validate any data path or anything like that. Rest of the things, like if you like to log into Cisco ACI controller and run few commands, configure few things, those are supported. If you want to have a look and feel of Cisco APIC GUI, that is also supported. And if you want to go ahead and start configuring the fabric by adding the endpoints like bare metal or maybe VMM configurations, etc., lots and lots of those things are also supported. Apart from this, if you want to test something with the APIs available, those things are also very much available with this ACI simulator. So this is a very good place to start. That is the reason I chose to start from here. In this video I will start with installation and initialization of the APIC simulator. So please stay tuned. Let's get started. So the first step, what we are going to do in order to start with ACI simulator is just go to Cisco website. That means software.cisco.com, and download the software available for the ACI simulator. This is software.cisco.com, and here you will have to go to download and upgrade section. In select a product search box, you will have to type application centric infrastructure simulator. You can see that it has appeared here. This is the page from where we can download the software for the simulator. You can go to, for example, I am using 5.2 release. So if you click here and click on the 5.2 1G, looks like this is first generation. So here you'll find different parts of the software. So this is a huge bundle, more than 60 GB bundle. So they have provided this software in 6 parts. You will have to download each one of them one by one, and once it is downloaded, it says that use Linux cat command to concatenate 6 parts. So this is very simple. I'll show you how it is done. For now, you just need to know that these are the required files. You will have to download all 6 of them and then later concatenate them with the help of cat command in Linux. The procedure to concatenate files are very simple. I'll just quickly go to my website. First of all, I have written a small blog on this ACI simulator also, and there I have given this procedure. So if you like to read, you can read this particular blog also. It has explained the same thing what I'm going to do in the video. But if you go to this section, the section 1, download and install the ACI simulator. Once you have all 6 files downloaded, you can see this in this directory. I have all these 6 files downloaded here, and then after that I am just putting a cat command which is going to concatenate all the files, and the name of the file is going to be acisim.ova. So this process is going to take around 20 to 25 minutes, and then you will have this particular file available. Okay, now back to my presentation. We have done step 1 as download the ACI simulator. This is done. Step 2 also we have seen, concatenate downloaded files. This is also done. We have seen this one also, downloaded files. Now let's move to step 3, which is installing the OVA file. Here I am using Oracle VirtualBox. Let me just quickly show you what are the settings that I have on my Oracle VirtualBox. So on my PC I have 64 GB of RAM. So out of those 64 GB, you can see that I have selected 32 GB of RAM and 12 processors I have given. If it is not visible to you, I'll just click on it. So this must be visible to you now. This is the setting which you can exactly replicate on Oracle VirtualBox on your PC, and you should be good to install the ACI simulator on your PC. So now coming back to my presentation, step 3 is also done. Now step 4. Alright, so from this point onwards, once you have your ESXi or VM Fusion or VirtualBox, any of those set up with the ACI OVA file, now you will have to start the initialization process. So the fourth step is initializing the OVA file. But before that, I would like to introduce a document, a Cisco document with you. That document talks a little about initialization process, and basically the whole process walks you through the set of questions that you will have to answer, and on the basis of your answers the ACI will be configured or ACI will be set up. So you need to know that what are those questions and what is going to be your answer for that. I'll talk about each of those questions, but before that, let's check out the document that we have. Okay, so this is the document what I was talking about, the Epic Getting Started Guide release 5.2x. You can see that it has given a lot of information, but most importantly, we are interested about this table right now, setup for the active and standby Epic. Now this is, you can see that it is defining few of the things. If by looking at the table, you can see that there are few names given and the description given about those names, and the default values are given of those particular attributes in this column. If you see, so there is a fabric name, there is a fabric ID, and there is number of controllers, pod ID. These are the questions which you will see at the time of the initialization of the software. With this document in our hand, let's get started with the initialization process. Okay, so this is my ACI simulator booting up. So here it is giving some information and asking a question about that. It says that default simulator topology consists of one epic, which is the controller, one leaf and one spine. You can select large topology with 3 apex, 2 leaves and 2 spines. And we recommend at least 64 GB of RAM and 16 plus CPUs for the large topology. So I'm just going to say no to large topology and move forward. Alright, so the first question it is asking is enter the name of the fabric. You don't need to worry a lot about name of the fabric. You can just keep it default, or you can put your own name, whatever you want. Let's keep it by default. I am keeping it by default, ACI Fabric 1. Now the next question here is the fabric ID. Just like the name fabric ID, also I am keeping it default. Nothing much to worry about this particular setting. Okay, so this is one important question. It is asking that enter the number of active controllers in the fabric. Numbers can be 1 to 9. Here, as you have seen in the first screen itself, I am going to choose the small topology, which is going to have just one controller. I am going to keep the number of controller as default. You can see that it has selected one controller by default, so I'm going to keep the default value as it is. So in the fabric you can have maximum of 3 active epic controllers. So after those 3 controllers you can have other standby controllers if you want to make those 3 controllers redundant as well. So those controllers are going to be the standby controller in your fabric. Since here I just have one active controller, so I don't need to do anything about this setting. Just I am keeping it as default, which is no, this is not a standby controller. Let's move ahead. Now the ID of the controller, just one controller I have, so I'll keep it 1. Now this is also an important setting. If you don't know what exactly standalone epic cluster is, then you may be confused a little about it. So you can always refer to the document which I have shared earlier. The standalone epic cluster means that this particular epic controller is not directly connected to the fabric, but it is connected via some L3 network, which is also called IPN network, something like this. I'll just move to my OneNote and show it to you. For example, this is my fabric. Now, due to some security policies in my network, I cannot connect Epic directly to my leaf switch. I need to put all the Epic controller, whatever I have, behind one of the firewalls, so that every communication between the Epic cluster and the leaf switches goes through a firewall. So for that, few environments basically put their Epic controller cluster behind a firewall, or maybe some kind of secure zone that they have. So they put the Epic cluster behind the firewall, and this firewall may be connected with some routers, and this router would in turn have connectivity with the spine like this. And this particular network, this L3 network over which the Epic cluster is connected, this is called IPN network or interpod network. And this Epic cluster will always be in pod 0. And in this pod 0, whatever Epic we have, those Epics would be called standalone Epic cluster. In this case, our controller is not standby controller, so I'll just keep the default selection, which is no, as it is. And now we'll move to the next setting. So this setting is asking for the pod ID. So let's try to understand ACI pod with the help of this particular slide. So in this slide, I have pod 1, which is consisting of one spine 2-leaf fabric, and also pod 2 is also having one spine 2-leaf fabric. Apart from this, pod 1 is also having 2 Epic controller, and pod 2 is just having 1 Epic controller. So in general, a set of spine leaf fabric and a controller is called a pod. Now with Epic release 2.0, what Cisco has introduced is they have introduced support for the multi-pod network. So for example, this is one pod that we have, and there is another pod. If we want to make the management and control plane same, then basically we can go ahead and cluster these 3 Epic controllers in a single cluster. So what I can do is this Epic, then this Epic, and this Epic can be clustered together to form a single control plane and management plane. And in order to do that, we'll have to have a L3 network between these pods. So these spines will be connected via one L3 network, which is also called IPN or interpod network. And this particular setup will make the multi-pod configuration possible. So this is what Cisco ACI pod is, and this is how Cisco ACI multi-pod is configured. I just have one Epic, so I'll just keep the pod ID as 1. Let's move further. Now, name of the Epic controller, I'll keep it by default Epic 1, that doesn't matter. Okay, so this is something very important. This is the network which we are going to use for the underlay, for the overlay, all this configuration within the fabric. That means the network which is configured between spine and the leaf, and between the leaves and the other leaves, which will be configured implicitly. So for those configurations, we are going to choose this particular network. If you already have this particular subnet assigned in your network, then you can choose the different subnet here. I'll keep it as it is because this is just the lab setup. I don't really have any other network joining to my network, so this should be fine. This is the next setting that I have. It says that the infrastructure VLAN ID should not be used elsewhere in your environment and should not overlap with any other reserved VLAN on other platforms. This particular VLAN will be used for the communication between the Epic controller and the switches. So this is very important, because if this particular infrastructure is broken or maybe overlapped by any of the different traffics in your network, then it is going to be a problem. So the recommendation is to keep VLAN 4 as infrastructure VLAN as much as you can. And this is the multicast network. This will be used for all the multicast purposes within the fabric. So we need to keep this one also unique within the network. All right, so we are entering the next section now. The first section, you have seen that it has asked a lot of question about the cluster configuration. The second section, it is going to be out of band management configuration. So it is asking if we are going to use IPv6 for out of band management. No, I'm not going to use it for now. Okay, so here it is asking for the IPv4 address of the controller. You can see that it has selected one IP address 192.168.10.1/24. This is not the network which I am going to use, so I am going to change it to 192.168.10.220. Then it is asking for the default gateway. I am going to give it 192.168.1.1, my home default gateway. The interface settings, I am going to keep it auto. Then it is asking if I want to keep a strong password. I am not going to keep a strong password. This is just a lab environment for me, so I'll keep a very simple password. You may choose a strong password for yourself if you want. Let me quickly enter the password here. The configuration section is done. Now it is giving a precautionary warning to you that TEP address pool, infrastructure VLAN ID and multicast address pool cannot be changed later. So these are the permanent settings until the fabric is wiped. So you need to be careful while configuring everything. So for the last time, it is going to ask you if you would like to edit this configuration. If you are very sure about the configuration, you can hit N here or no, and then it will start initializing for the fabric for you. Alright, so Epic has come up. Now I am going to use the same admin user ID and password that I have configured there, and I should be able to log in into it. Excellent. We have seen the console access. Now we are going to see the GUI and what are the configuration that are needed to be done on GUI. So here is my web browser. I am using Google Chrome for this, and I am going to use the IP address which I have configured is 192.168.1.220. This IP address is assigned to Epic controller, and I am going to use simple HTTP session because this is not HTTPS enabled. So let's see if I am able to access the Epic controller. Okay, I am able to access the Epic controller. I'm going to put the password that I have configured. Excellent. Okay, from here you can just begin the first time setup. All right, so in this particular page we are having quite a few information. So I think there are few wizards that we have for the fabric membership, for the BGP configuration, NTP, DNS proxy, out of band management, and some of the global configuration settings also. So the most important thing is fabric membership. On this particular wizard, you are going to basically register the switches. Once you register the switches, for example leaf and spine switches with the Epic controller, those switches will be discovered and then become active. So once they are active, they will become the part of the fabric finally. Right now those switches are not identified by the Epic controller, so our first task is to bring them into the fabric. So we'll start bringing them switches into the fabric. Let's go to the fabric membership. All right, here you can already see that we have one switch which is 9396 switch, which is a leaf switch definitely. So it is showing it is discovered, but it is not registered yet. So we are going to register this particular switch. Click on register, and here you can give a node ID. For example, here I am going to give the node ID as 101, and the name of the switch is going to be leaf 1. And here you just need to select the node type as leaf switch. You leave those things unchecked for now. Those are the different purposes of this particular switch. We'll submit, and now this is registering. Once it is registered, it will move to the bottom table, and the new switch will appear on the top table. Excellent. So the new switch has also appeared. So first the leaf switch was discovered, and then from the leaf the spine is also reachable now. So the leaf switch is also, so the spine is also discovered. I am going to put all the details about the spine and then submit. You may think that if you are a beginner, if you have not seen the fabric earlier, then you may think that why only leaf switch is getting discovered first. The reason for that is the leaf switch is connected directly with the APIC controller. You can see the network here. So I have the APIC controller right here, and it is connected to the leaf switch. Once the leaf switch is visible, then APIC controller can see any other devices like this one and this one, right? Okay, so its spine has moved to the registered table, and now there would be one more switch which is going to be discovered. Although it says that in the smaller topology there is going to be one leaf and one spine, but there are two leaf switches that they are giving. So I was very surprised, but yeah, it is good to have two leaf switches. Other leaf has also appeared. Now let's register the another leaf also. I'll just put the node ID as 1 or 2 and the switch name as leaf 2. Click submit. Okay, so it has taken a minute, but all the devices are active now. So fabric membership configuration is done. Now I'm going to move to the BGP configuration. Okay, and if you see a little diagram at the top of the this window, it is having one APIC, then there are two spines and three leaves, and then there is some kind of connection, a BGP connection, which is going out of the spines to the BGP autonomous system, some other autonomous system that we have. So that gives us some idea that in case there is any other external network which is attaching with the fabric, then for that particular network we'll have to have this BGP route reflector configured, so that once the routes are learned, those routes would be reflected to leaves as well, because this is we are going to have IGP here, so we need to have a route reflector, at least one route reflector in the network. So that is what we are going to do here. Let's see, we have one spine already, which is spine 201. We are going to select one autonomous system number here and then select this particular spine to be configured for this particular autonomous system as route reflector, and then we will move forward. So BGP configuration is done. Apart from this, we have NTP, DNS, proxy, out-of-band management, IP addresses configuration. Since this is just the lab, I don't need NTP, DNS or proxy to be configured. Even I don't have NTP, DNS server, etc. And so I'm going to leave it by default. Now the next thing is out of band management IP address. So the out of band management IP address, you already know that we have configured it for the APIC controller. We have not configured it for the leaf and spine switches. So with this particular wizard, you can actually go ahead and configure the IP addresses for the other devices also, like spines and leaf devices. But I'll leave it blank for now. I'll just review the changes and apply the configuration. So these are some of the settings which Cisco already has configured for us. And what it says is that these are the recommended configuration and best practices during the first time setup of the ACI Fabric. So please read the implications carefully before proceeding. If you want, you can just read through this default configuration. Once you are sure, you can save and continue, and that is all. The configuration is done here. So I'm going to just save and continue here, and let's see what is the configuration that we have on the APIC controller. Okay, so our APIC controller is now ready with all the devices set up there. Before I end the video, I just wanted to show you the topology and the devices which are registered here. For that, you can go to the Fabric tab, and on the Fabric, you can click on topology. Here you are seeing that there is a summary tab and there is also a topology tab. Summary tab is telling you that there is one controller, two leaves and one pod. Now if you click on topology tab, you can see the connectivity between all these devices. Okay, so this is my ACI Fabric that I have installed. Now with this, the initial installation and setup is complete for the ACI, and now I am going to just close this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I have more ACI videos coming in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time and have a nice day ahead.